Hiya there, it's Teacher Mike from Phuket Pals. Welcome back to another video. In this one, we're going to be looking at a number of areas that you need to focus on when you're preparing yourself for the GED Social Studies test. Now, as I said in video one, this is not the type of test in which you can kind of learn lists of dates or learn lists of the names of historical figures and expect to walk into the exam and just to kind of tick a box. Who won the battle of da 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 da, A, B, C, D, they won the battle. It's not that type of test, okay? It's a skill-based test, okay? It's testing things like your ability to read closely, your ability to evaluate data from graphs or from short paragraphs, to analyze, to make inferences, to be able to pick out main ideas, to all of these higher order thinking skills. So when you're preparing for the test, please don't just try and learn by rote what happened in a battle and who the historical figures were or whatever else it is, because that will help you very, very little in the main test itself. So the question is, what should you do? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to figure out what things come up again and again and again. What topic areas come up again and again and again in the GED Social Studies test? And I can help you with that today. So let's have a little look here. The first thing that comes up all the time, excuse me, is types of government. Okay, so you need to be familiar with the different types of government. So things like democratic government, monarchical government, dictatorship, and oligarchy. And it makes sense as well. There's a lot more than that. So I advise you to not only grab a GED preparation book, but also use kind of your own research on the internet to figure out more about these different types of government. So, get into websites like the BBC website, or it could be BBC News, or it could be BBC History is very, very useful. Or just pick your own source. Just Google, for example, democratic government, or what is democracy, or is democracy a good form of government? And just read articles about this. You'll be able to build your vocabulary around the area, and find out a lot more than you would do just reading a bog standard textbook. Okay, so things like monarchy. Okay, so you can type in monarchy as types of government. Even Wikipedia is good for this as well, just to build up your vocab. Dictatorship and oligarchy as well. So that's, you need to read around these topics. Don't just be content to buy one core textbook and focus solely on that. Because I can tell you, with the GED textbooks, there's quite a few of them they have a tiny bit of information, like a paragraph about democratic government, a paragraph about monarchy. And this topic is so much wider. And what you need to do is get into the habit of just reading about these things online and making some notes on the vocab and reading closely and trying to comprehend what you read. That way you're building skills as opposed to just, being just relying only on a core textbook. Core textbooks are limited in the value they can give you, okay? So that's the first one, types of government. The second one is all about independence. So it's understanding the reasons for and basic tenets of the Articles of Confederation and the Declaration of Independence. So this is obviously for US history. And again, get on Google, go to Wikipedia, have a read about the Articles of Confederation, have a read about the Declaration of Independence. This is much harder if you're not from the USA, of course. It's kind of learning brand new stuff. But there's so many articles. Go to any history website, just type in the history of Articles of Confederation. What was the Declaration of Independence? Or you can even expand even more. You could say something like, how good is the Declaration of Independence? How effective is the Declaration of Independence? What were the effects of the Declaration of Independence? So kind of think of cause and effect. Think of what can you type into Google that will enable you to read more widely and I suppose, deeper than just focusing on a core textbook. Okay, you could even type in the causes and effects of the Declaration of Independence. This would be perfect types of reading in your study time. Number 3, creation of the US Constitution. Okay, so you need to know the principles that underlie the Constitution. So you need to know terms like popular sovereignty, limited government, separation of powers, checks and balances, judicial review, and federalism. Also understand the compromises that were made in writing the Constitution. So again, you need to get each of these separate terms. You need to explore them via Google. There's no excuse anymore, I think, as a student. You know, if you want to find out what popular sovereignty is, you really, okay, check your core textbook first, but then you need to dig deeper with that term. What is popular sovereignty? How useful is popular sovereignty? Does popular sovereignty have any problems? What were the causes of popular sovereignty within the US Constitution? So you're constantly playing with this language and trying to find out cause and effect, trying to find out problems. You're trying to find out people who were involved in creating these ideas as well. So the idea of popular sovereignty, why not Google, you know, who coined the idea of popular sovereignty? Who were the main players in inventing this term? Things like this, okay? So get creative with your searches, read closely and deeply, and make sure you make plenty of notes in your notebook and highlight those appropriately, okay? Number 4 is citizenship. Okay, so that's knowing the basic rights and responsibilities of US citizenship. Again, that's basic stuff, okay? Wikipedia that and get to know it. You can also dig deeper with the topic and find out things like, you know, you could say, like, do all citizens have equal rights in the US? And are there any problems with people having equal citizenship? Or again, get creative with your searches. Next is Bill of Rights, understanding the reason for the Bill of Rights and its content. Very, very important, this one. Okay, just get on Google and do your research. Amendments to the Constitution. Okay, so you need to understand the process for amending the Constitution. Don't get, again, with the Bill of Rights and with the amendments themselves, don't get into the game of trying to memorize all of the amendments to the Constitution. Don't get into the game of trying to memorize everything within the Bill of Rights. You need a general understanding. You need to know why the Bill of Rights came about. You need to know certain the big amendments, okay? The standout amendments. Again, type in what were the most significant amendments ever to the US Constitution, or which amendments had the biggest impact in which amendments to the Constitution have the biggest impact in US history. And again, become familiar with some of these cases. Become familiar with when women got the vote. Become familiar with things like Brown versus education, okay? Become familiar with the big cases, but you don't need to memorize years and all of that. Just think about the cases, think about their impact on American society, and just get a general overview of these things, okay? Number 7, branches of government. This is very, very important. Comes up all the time. Understanding the functions of each of the 3 branches of the US government and how the system of checks and balances works. This can be quite heavy if you are not from the US. Go to YouTube for this. There's tons of good videos on how the US government works in YouTube. Find a nice video with an infographic or some kind of cartoon that breaks it down and visualizes how the 3 branches of government interact with each other. This makes it a lot easier. Again, you can use your core textbook as well. There'll be some diagrams in there, but I think a nice well-produced visual YouTube video is much better for getting your first kind of understanding of how the system of government works. And again, then dig deeper, do more researches, start finding out about the advantages, the disadvantages of the different branches of government, weaknesses of the system, advantages of the system. Do your reading, make some notes, guys. This is the key to success in this test. Okay, it's not just about the knowledge in the core textbook. It's reading around, improving your skills, widening your knowledge, and yeah. So number 8, elections. Know the steps in the presidential election process and how elections are decided. Okay, so you need to know about the voting system in the US. You need to know about how the elections themselves work, and also strengths and weaknesses. Okay, strengths and weaknesses, positives and negatives of the US election system. Know these types of ideas. Number 9, political parties and interest groups. Understand the function and influence of political parties and special interest groups. Yeah, so again, you need a kind of general bird's eye view understanding of this. You don't need to go too deep in this test, but you do need to know what the different political parties are. You do need to know what each of the main political parties stands for. It's a good idea to know what types of people usually support these political parties. You might dig in a little bit to their history as well of each political party. You might also, in fact, you definitely need to know what kind of ideas these political parties stand for. Okay, and kind of compare and contrast especially the main 2 political parties, the ideas that they traditionally stand for and how they compare with each other. Okay, number 10, colonial history. Okay, know how America was excuse me, first discovered by Europeans and how the first 13 colonies were established. Again, I recommend, if you haven't touched on this before, get into YouTube. There's tons of good videos there, and get a nice visual video and see how all of that came about. Then get into some nice articles about the history. The internet is full of how America was discovered. So read widely, read deeply, take your own notes, get familiar with new language, and move on. Number 11, the Revolutionary War. Okay, know the reasons behind the war, why did it happen. Also then know the effects. Okay, so know the causes of the Revolutionary War, know the effects that it had on America itself, and yeah, know the key figures if you can. Also, number 12, US expansionism. Know the basic ideas of the Monroe Doctrine, manifest destiny, trace the westward expansion of America. Okay, do your research there. Number 13, Civil War and Reconstruction. What were the reasons for the Civil War? What effect did the Civil War have on the country? What was Reconstruction? Who was involved in Reconstruction? What did Reconstruction involve? Was it successful? Was it not? Okay, constantly, when you're reading closely, guys, you have to be questioning things all the time. Like I'm showing you as I speak here. Don't be content just with a surface reading of something. You need to ask constant questions about this topic. Write them down. Take the Civil War. Think to yourself, okay, here's the Civil War. I'm going to read about it. What do I want to find out? I want to find out the causes. I want to find out what happened. I want to find out the key figures. I want to find out what effect it had on the country. I want to find out the advantages of it. What were the disadvantages of it? All of these things, okay? So constantly be questioning in your own head and find out the answers to your own questions, okay? That's how you study properly, effectively, and deeply, okay? Number 14, industrialization. Understand how the US underwent industrialization and urbanization. Know the effects of those transitions, okay? Again, read. World wars. So what was America's role in what was America's role in World War I, World War II? Become familiar with the main battles in the theatre of war that the US was involved in. Again, get to know key battles, get to know key figures in the war, get to know why America got involved in the war when it did. Okay, because as we all know, the US wasn't in the war as long as, for example, the UK. So why was that? What held them back from joining? And what impact did they have when they did join? 16, US as a world power. So you need to know about the Cold War. Okay, do your research on the Cold War. How did the US become a superpower? And how did that change their foreign policy outlook in the world? Okay, so remember, before the Second World War ended, the US was not a global superpower, but after it ended, it was. So why was this? What caused that to happen? And how did that change the foreign policy of the US in the post-Second World War era? Do your research. It's all on the net. Number 17, economic fundamentals. So again, this is moving into the economics section of the paper. It's very basic, honestly. Like you're looking at opportunity. What is opportunity cost? What's cost benefit analysis? What is labor, capital, profit, productivity, and entrepreneurship? Okay, so get to know those terms and what they mean. Markets, understand the relationship between price, supply, and demand. Okay, so basic economics. Moving on, macroeconomics. So what makes the world go round in terms of economics? What's the big picture? Okay, fiscal, monetary policies, international trade, GDP, inflation, deflation, unemployment. Microeconomics. Okay, so think about credit, think about banking, think about loans, think about demand, things like this. Maps, very important. You need to become familiar with different types of maps. Okay, so things like topographical maps, climate maps, political maps, and things like that. Okay, so you need to get to know all of these different types of maps. So when you go into the test and you get a different type, there's no big shock. 22, movements of people. So what is migration? What is immigration? What is emigration? What are push factors with regard to emigration? What are pull factors? What is population trends? What are demographics all about? Culture, elements of culture, excuse me. Understand what makes a culture unique. Okay, so language, religion, ethnic forms, group, government, economic system. Okay, so again, get on Google and do some nice research on culture. Okay, you could type in something like, how important is language in making a culture? What role does religion play in culture? Things like this, okay? As I said before, many students think if they buy a core textbook, that's all they need. I don't advise that whatsoever, because there's not enough extensive reading within a core textbook. So the internet is there. It's the greatest free resource we've ever seen in the history of humankind. Everything is there. Everything is at your fingertips. So don't be lazy, okay? Use, for example, what I'm talking to you about today and get creative with your searching. Go through this video again. Take down each of these 25 points and then make that the basis for your reading program for this test. Okay, don't worry about constantly answering exam questions. That's not how you improve your vocab and understanding. Okay, it's about wide reading and reading closely as you do so, making notes and all of that. Next, political ideas. So what is liberalism? What's conservatism, socialism, nationalism, and Marxism? Then world history. Don't worry about world history for now. Okay, so they're the main 24. And I hope that helps you a little bit. Okay, as I say, take my advice in this video, make notes, get yourself a nice, I don't know, whether you use your computer to make notes or whether you write things on a notebook and color code with highlighters or whatever. It's up to you how you do it, but you need to dig deep if you want to get a 165 or above in this test, okay? You need to massively improve your reading level and your knowledge of concepts. Don't worry about learning dates and lists or anything like that. It's not about that, but it is about reading lots, but reading in an organized way. So cover these 24 points that I've shown you today and give yourself time. Don't rush it and enjoy the new knowledge that you get. Okay, so that's it from me, Teacher Mike. Have a good day. Thank you.